I'm here waiting. Hi, good night, everyone. So, I am your host, Boricua Angie, and you're listening to Thoughts of a Light Skinned Woman. Today, my guests are Reggie and Cleve. Tonight's episode is about do you know where you come from? So, I was talking to Reggie before we came on live, and I basically said I'm not a historian. I don't know my history like that. I'm gonna say it. I don't care. Went to school. I wasn't really interested. I felt like it was just just to go to school, just to get out of home. But I'm not a historian. I had to Google. Google's there. I appreciate it. So I don't know if my camera is. I don't know once I go if it's gonna like black out for a minute. Can you guys see me or it just went on black?
No, I
No,
can
I
see
can
you.
see.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, can hear you.
Yep.
Are you guys on mute? Hello?
Nope,
No. Can you hear
No?
me?
I can hear you,
Weird. Are
Reggie.
you having technical
Yeah, I can
difficulties
hear you
right
too.
now? Let's check
I don't
this
know,
out.
man.
Hold on.
You know what?
Hello?
Yeah.
Can
Can
you?
you hear
Yep.
me?
There we go. This is so annoying. All right. So I was just asking, does it when I go on WhatsApp, does it black out the camera? No,
No.
right? No?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
Oh,
cool.
you're good.
So you guys can still see me. All right. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about, and I'm gonna pull up the video was my anthem. So a few things I think I mentioned before. From my mom's side, so I'm Puerto Rican and black. My mom's Puerto Rican. My family from my mom's side comes from Vega Baja in Puerto Rico. And it's funny because I was like, I basically, I'm Afro Latina. Um, I've only been to Puerto Rico once when I was like 8 years old. I still haven't been back since then. But I've said it before, I'm the first person to rep hard for where I come from. But again, if you were to sit me down and ask me questions, anything about Puerto Rico, I would not know. So today was the day. Only because, like I said, I saw something on IG where it was the Puerto Rican Day Parade, and a couple was asked, do you know the anthem of Puerto Rico? And I remember the lady said something about Que Bonita Bandera, and that was not it. So I was like, ooh, I was like, you're not gonna catch me off guard if you ever ask me that question.
I hear that.
So I
Yeah.
went on YouTube and I found it because I googled it first. So it tells me that the Puerto Rican national anthem is called La Borinqueña. So let's see if you guys can hear it because it'll be my first time hearing it. Hold on, let's see.
Tierra de Borinquen, donde nacido yo.
Oh my god, I know this song.
Es un jardín florido de mágico primor, un cielo siempre nítido le sirve de dosel. Llegan arrullos plácidos, las olas a sus pies, cuando a sus playas llegó, exclamo lleno de admiración. Esta es la linda tierra que busco yo. Es Borinquen la hija del mar y el sol, del mar y el sol, del mar y el sol, del mar y el sol.
Wow.
Wow, that's passionate.
Yeah.
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 And some of the lyrics I've actually heard it like in a song because I was like, hold up. I was like, wait a minute. But yeah, that's beautiful. That's my first time hearing it.
Okay.
Awesome.
So then I also went in to look into the meaning of the flag. So I
Okay.
wanted to know. So it says, I see there's two flags. I wish I have to eventually I'm gonna learn how to get better at this. Um, there's two flags that I'm looking at right now. So one is the Puerto Rican flag, and then there's another flag. So it's kind of like two blue and two red, and then it's white around. And then in the two blue, one of them has like a white star. So it says on the left of the flag, it is a single white five-pointed star resting in a blue triangle. The three red stripes symbolize the blood from the brave warriors. The two white stripes, victory and peace after obtaining independence. And the blue symbolizes the sky and sea. And the white star is the island.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know that.
I, I'm telling you. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
I was like, don't even ask me questions because I would be horrible at this.
So I I have a confession to make. So and I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No, it's all
so
right.
let me give you a little bit of my background. So well, Angie, I grew up in Brooklyn.
Right.
I grew up in the same neighborhood where you kind of live in now. So mostly the folks that I grew up with were Puerto Rican and black. And I'm looking at this flag because this is a flag, Graham Avenue, right? That's Avenue Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah.
So as I'm looking at the flag and I'm looking at the triangle of the flag, and what you said makes a lot of sense because if the star represents the island of Puerto Rico, and this is just my theory, I could be totally wrong. The triangle that the star is in, it's in blue. The only thing that I can think about is the Bermuda Triangle because
Mm.
Puerto Rico sits in that Bermuda Triangle area and it's part of the trade area back before slavery. So perhaps that blue triangle with the star in the middle has some significant meaning. Does that make sense?
Oh
Yeah.
man, I'm gonna be like you going way ahead, but I got you. I actually got all that stuff as well too. So
Okay.
yeah, I still have like a whole bunch of information that I'm like I
Okay.
still
Yeah.
needed
I'm
to
sorry.
read.
It just hit me, so I figured I'd mention it before I forget. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
You
steal your
on to
thunder.
something. You on to something. Trust me, I got some of that too. Let's see. There was another one where I think I asked about. I wonder if this is it. I was asking like, why does the Puerto Rican flag and the Cuban flag look the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it said that the similarities between the Cuban and Puerto Rican flags are not accidental. It says the Cuban flag was designed in 1849 by Narcisco Lopez, a pro-independence exile living in New York City. It said the design for the Puerto Rican flag was adapted by a committee of exiles living in New York during the mid 1890s. While it is not known for sure who designed the later flag, the two flags' design reflect the close ties between pro-independence activities from both countries who continue their work from the relative safety of New York City. Because I was
Okay.
always curious about that. I'm like, why does the Puerto Rican and the Cuban flag look similar? But it's just, you know what I mean? Just the colors are reversed, you know?
Mm.
What else do I
Yeah,
have?
I didn't know that. I thought somebody in Cuba or Puerto Rico. I didn't know somebody from in New York designed it.
Right. That's interesting. Again, you see? Know nothing
Yeah.
about it. Oh, what is going on
Mm.
here? No. All right. So it says the Puerto Rican Constitution Day, right? And then it says July 25th of this year. So it says Puerto Rican Constitution Day is observed on July 25th. It commemorates a landmark historical moment, 1825, when Governor Luis Muñoz Marin signed the first Puerto Rican Constitution into law. It says the holiday is also a reminder of Puerto Rico's pending statehood, an elusive dream that has not seen the light of day for centuries. It says the history of Puerto Rican Constitution Day. It says Puerto Rico has been colonized since the 16th century. So in the first 300 years, it was ruled by the Spanish, who caused centuries of oppression, taxation, and crippling poverty. It says finally the people had enough. They began a revolution in 1869, but the authorities quickly struck it down. As to soothe the people and diffuse tensions, the Spanish government granted the Puerto Ricans more independence, which was barely in its infancy when the U.S. declared war on Spain. On July
Mm.
25th, 1898, it says U.S. forces invaded and occupied the island for the remainder of the Spanish-American War. When the war ended, Puerto Rico became a U.S. colony as part of a peace treaty, but the people wanted a country of their own. Soon, the Puerto Rican call for an autonomy grew loud, and as a response, the Foraker Act came into being in 1900. While the act established a civilian government, it did not grant complete rights to the islanders. Puerto Rico received the status of unorganized territory with some measures of self-governance, which wasn't enough. So as tensions on the island continue escalating, the 1917 Jones-Shafroth Act gave U.S. citizenship to most Puerto Ricans while still allowing Congress and the U.S. president a veto over Puerto Rican laws. Then it said in 1950, the United States initiated discussions for Puerto Rico to draft its constitution, but only as long as its territorial status remained unchanged. Puerto Rico called for a constitutional convention that advocated a Republican form of government and a Bill of Rights. It says Puerto Rico changed its official name to the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, and the new constitution was born in 1952. I don't think it has anything else here.
Yeah, interesting.
All right.
Okay.
But you see, things I'm like, if you don't search it, you don't, and if especially when you don't have like the, I guess what we call like the elders or the people that know the history, we don't know
Yeah.
some of this stuff. And I feel like it's still
Yeah.
important because you know what I was thinking about this morning was we're here in the United States and we call this America. And then it's like you could say you're American, but when you look at someone, it's like you know that somebody's mixed with something. You know what I mean? They're mixed with something. It's like I could say, yeah, I'm Puerto Rican and black, but I was actually born in Florida. I was born in Florida. But I
Right.
still, you know, I still will tell people like, yes, I'm Puerto Rican and black. I'm not just gonna be like, yeah, I'm a Floridian or I'm just American. No. I'm still, you know, my mom's Puerto Rican, her father, so that's what I'm. So yeah. So I
Well,
guess I don't know if you guys.
well, that's one of the benefits of if I had to pick a benefit of being here, it's one of the benefits of being here that you have that it's a double-edged sword. You have the ability to be born in a place where you don't have to be, you know, I'm going to say this wrong. I hope you guys can understand this because there's a point to this. One of the benefits of being here is that you don't have to judge your own self by your label of where you come from, because at the end of the day, you're American, right?
Mm.
But we also have the ability to appreciate our own heritage. Our heritage is sometimes the place where our families are from, and sometimes your heritage is the place that you're born, and it's all dependent on culture. So the reason why I say that is because, much like yourself, I think I'm at a disadvantage, only because, so a lot of my friends who I thought were just black growing up, and I'm just going to use black as a general term, you know, I find out that, you know, they're from Barbados, they're from Haiti, they're from Jamaica, they're from, you know, whatever, and they have countries that their families have come from, or they were born there and came here. And so I look at myself and I said, well, I'm not like that. Everybody thinks I'm from the Highlands. I'm not. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. My father was born and raised in Brooklyn. My mother was born and raised in Brooklyn. My grandparents were born down south. So I feel like I'm a man without a country and without a flag. But that's not necessarily true because I was born here in America. So the reason why I say that is because it's, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. That's the beauty of it, that you have the duality of being born somewhere here in the States, but have somewhere where you can go to call home. That's your culture, that's your heritage. The flip side of that is, unfortunately, this country teaches our kids that you're American, that and you see it right now in critical race theory, right? Nobody wants to talk about where they come from. They don't want to talk about the history of where they come from. And certainly they're not going to talk about the flag of their country, right? So that's why I say to you, and I say to many people, if you don't know about where you come from or your flag, it's okay to acknowledge that, because we were brainwashed as kids to feel that, and I bet you the farm, all three of us did this. Elementary school, stand up, say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, right? But we don't talk about the Puerto Rican flag. We don't talk about the Mexican flag. We don't talk about, the Israeli flag. And the reason why I say Israeli too is because, remember, living in Williamsburg, and you know this, Puerto Rican and Jewish, the Hasidic Jews and Puerto Ricans and blacks dominate Williamsburg. So here's the thing. You got the Israeli flag on one side of the street, you got the Puerto Rican flag on the other side of the street, and then you got the Jamaican flag on the block, and then you got the Bohemian flag. So that's what I'm saying. We it's easy to teach that as a one swipe, that we're all American, and not to teach the individual cultures. And I say, if you feel a certain way about you not, knowing that, don't, because it was by design for that to happen. I'm glad you have this podcast, because it now makes us think about, where do we really truly come from? What is the history from where we come from? And the flag is always significant because it will always tell a tale. So I am dying to hear what you specifically found on the Puerto Rican flag. Like, what does it actually mean?
Wait, were you here? Because let's see. That was when I was telling you. I don't know if there's any more information, but I can look into that. Let's see.
Okay. Because there's always stories about flags. Well, Reggie, let me ask you, where are you from?
Me personally, I was born and raised in Queens, New York.
Okay.
My mother's side, so my grandmother, and my great grandmother, they're from Panama. They're
There
from
you go.
Colon, Panama. My grandmother moved to America when she was 14. So, and basically, her and my cousins, distant cousins, moved to New York, and which they stayed. I still have family in Panama, because my grandmother used to go like every year to go to Panama and all that. Unfortunately, I didn't go. I wanted to go, but at the time, my mom didn't get a passport for me. So
Okay.
that's one of the two things I regret. Is not going to Panama with my grandmother, and asking and not learning how to speak Spanish from my
Okay.
grandmother. Because she's fluent in Spanish. That's her first language. So, but yeah, pretty much, yeah, they're from Panama. Basically, we was raised Catholic, saints, and candles, and what I'm saying, Jesus on the wall and all that. There was times where, yeah, when she's mad at us, she'll yell at us in Spanish and all that. So I was pretty much raised in a setting where it's Panamanian and stuff like that. My father he's born and raised in South Carolina. I don't know too much. I have a big family down there, but basically most of the point, like, yeah, they're from South Carolina, the Orangeburg area,
Okay.
and all that. So yeah, I'm starting to learn about my father's side, and where they from, and the generations of people of my family that live down there, and yeah. So, but basically, yeah, I've been raised Panamanian and religious Catholic religion.
Mhm.
But yeah, being from Queens, it's such a diverse place to live at because yeah, you
It
can.
is.
I live where Asian, Chinese, Puerto Rican, Dominican, uh, Indian, Pakistani, so I lived with all that in one block. You know what I'm saying? So
Sure. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's I'm very diverse. I have 3 kids of my own. I would love them to live in a diverse setting as well. So because the thing about I live in Virginia. So one thing about Virginia, they're all like I'm gonna say segregated, but yeah, the blacks stay with the blacks, whites stay with the whites, Spanish stay with the Spanish. They didn't live. My kids didn't live in a diverse setting where I was living, like I lived at. So it'd be good to them to learn other people's cultures, other people's backgrounds and stuff that. And I want to teach them about their background, about where they're from, where their family is from. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Stuff like that. So yeah, I dibble dabble into Panamanian culture and see, what they do over there and what the culture is and all that. So yeah, you know, I'm slowly but surely learning, about where I'm from. Yep.
Okay. Cool. Because
Yeah.
I'm now looking up your flag, the
Mm-hmm.
Panamanian flag,
Yeah.
and so it looks. And please don't. I'm not trying to insult anybody, but it
No,
looks
no.
very much like the Dominican flag.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
Very
it has
much
the
like the
red.
Dominican flag, right? So
Mm,
um, so here's the thing. So here's the question. So you got one side from Panama. You got the Panamanian flag, right? And
mm.
so, what do you know about Panama itself? I know you haven't been there, but like, do you remember any stories, like from your grandmother, like about Panama and what it was like down there, and any history?
The only thing that she told me was it was when she was a child. It was good. It was a good place to live. She said now, since the years that she was going back and forth, she said it got bad. The crime
Hmm.
is horrible, and like so many gangs, and just like everywhere else basically. But yeah, she said from where she was. Sorry about that. And when she was a child, it's it's different. It got way like worse. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? The politics is bad, and just kids are shooting each other, like basically like everywhere else. But as far as that, she never really went into detail about how she grew up, and I guess she was too old school for that. You know what I mean? So she didn't
Right.
really tell us the history of Cologne and the history of Panama and stuff like that. I had
Right.
to really like what Angie did. I had to go on Google and really look at it and see myself, like what is it about and
Mhm.
the background and the history of Panama. And I
Sure.
still don't know a lot about it, But I would love to go one day and visit where my grandmother lived and
Hmm.
see whatever relatives I still have over there, and I would love to do that.
Cool. Cool. Cool.
So
Oh,
Awesome.
so Cleve, I found something on what you were just asking me
Uh-huh.
because I feel like it goes a little bit more into it.
Okay.
uh,
Like I said, I gotta take a day to really sit down and and figure out how to do this whole you know what I mean, like display what I'm looking at.
Right.
Uh, so I see that there's like 2 flags, still the same thing, but the only part is that the blue is like a really light color, and then it says it was adapted December 22nd of 1895, and that was 127 years ago.
Okay.
Then it says it was relinquished December 10th of 1898, and that was 124 years ago. So then now that we have the with the darker blue tone, that says it was adapted July 24th of 1952. That was 70 years ago, right? So it says the flag of Puerto Rico represents and symbolizes Puerto Rico and its people. It says the origins of the current flag of Puerto Rico, adapted by the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico in 1952, can be traced to 1868, when the first Puerto Rican flag, the Revolutionary Flag of Layers, was conceived by Dr. Ramon Emeterio Betances, hopefully I'm saying it right, and embroidered by Mariana Brazos de Oro Bracetti. It says that this flag was used in the short-lived Puerto Rican revolt against Spanish rule in the island, known as El Grito de Lares, establishing for the first time a Puerto Rican national consciousness under colonial rule. And then it says
Okay.
Juan de Mata Tereforte, an exile veteran of El Grito de Lares and vice president of the Puerto Rican Revolutionary Committee. Oh, that's what we talk about in New York City, adapted with its members the flag of layers as the flag of Puerto Rico until 1895, when the current design, modeled after the Cuban flag, was unveiled and adopted by the committee. It says the new flag, which consisted of 5 equal horizontal bands of red, top and bottom, alternating with white, a blue isosceles triangle based on the hoist side bears of a large white five-pointed star in the center, was first flown in Puerto Rico on March 24th, 1897 during the Intentonoa de Jaco, yeah, revolt. It says this is contrasted by the usage of 3 blue and 2 white equal horizontal stripes and a red equilateral triangle at the hoist with a five-pointed star in the Cuban flag. It says the
Right.
use and display of the Puerto Rican flag was outlawed, and the only flags permitted to be flown in Puerto Rico was the Spanish flag from 1492 to 1898 and the American flag from 1898 to 1952. That's crazy.
Wow. Wow. So now let me ask you this. How does that make you feel?
Uh,
So you knew I was going to come and ask you some serious questions as our host. Right? You knew I would. You know I got to come correct. And there's a reason why. And trust me, believe me, there's a reason why I'm asking. How does that make you feel, or how does it make you see yourself, your heritage, your family, your lovely, lovely island? How does that make you feel?
I just think it's a little disappointing because I feel like even if it's not just Puerto Rico and it's other, you know what I mean, other
Mhm.
countries, other places, I feel like back then, before I came along, before I was born, there was just a lot of war, a lot of fighting for independence and freedom. And then it was
Mhm.
always somebody in the background that was like, you know what? No, everything was like a no, like this is not gonna happen. This is what we want. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing that I'm just like, it's just sad how, somebody else was always trying to control everything. And I'm glad. And
Mhm.
I have to say, for the people who are no longer here, I'm very happy that these people actually stood up and wanted to fight and knew that they deserved better. They knew that they deserved freedom. You know what I mean? They knew that they deserved the independence. And I appreciate that. Because I'm telling
Mhm.
you, I've seen, I think, you ever seen the Will Smith movie? Was it called Independence? And I think there was another name for it. Was he supposed to be Haitian in the movie? You know what I'm talking about, right?
I think so.
I'm about to Google it real quick. But it's
I
it's
think so.
great just to see um just like the history, people finally talking about it, that it's not just coming from one race or one person saying this is what happened, you know what I mean? That now it's
Right.
somebody else talking about how everything happened to where we're at now. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Right.
sometimes I have moments where I feel like I do have moments sometimes where I feel like sometimes I'm like, even just being here in the US, sometimes I don't feel like I'm actually free. That's
Right.
what I get sometimes. Like I don't
Right.
really feel free at all. Um I don't think it's gotten to a point that we have to fight out here for
Right, right.
anything yet, but that's how I feel. And it just sucks. It's like it
Well,
doesn't
that.
matter where you come from, what
Mhm.
year it's from. It's always something. But again, I'm gonna say it again. I appreciate the people who stand up, who fight, and who make some sort of change, even if it takes years. But it happens. You know.
Right.
It
Well,
happens.
that's someone that you was talking about, and that's why I asked that question because I knew you was going to hit the nail on the head, which you did, and that someone is America. That's what held you back. That's what held Puerto Rico back. That's what held a lot of these countries or a lot of people who live here back from knowing their history. And that's all. And people think that critical race theory is a term that was coined within the last 2 3 years. No, this has been going on for centuries, because the aggressors, they know what they did, but they think that because we come from a different island, because we don't speak English, or we speak a different language, that they equate your intelligence by the lack of speaking English, and that's so narcissistic and just full of themselves. But you know, it's interesting that the ones that don't want you to learn about it is the one that's waving the red, white, and blue. And I'm not talking about the Puerto Rican flag, red, white, and blue. I'm talking about, the United States flag. Because, like you said, I am equally upset that, you know, the American flag was flying on an island that, first off, wasn't even your island to begin with, you know? Um, let alone this country, right? And so then you got people who wanted to coin and love and cultivate this island and make it their own, and you didn't give them the ability to do that, or there was a conflict about a flag, and their culture. So this goes deeper than a flag. This goes deeper than, and I think the sooner that people recognize that, the more people like yourself and even like me who want to learn more about, you know, where they come from, not necessarily where they're born, but where they come from in the history of their flag, because it may make you empowered. It may make you want to think about the history and the struggle that people went through, and that might be your daily testimonial to make you go further. If the people behind me in the history did it, I can do it too. But you're not given that because we've been, I pledge allegiance to the flag. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I don't know.
And that's a good point because in school we might have had history, but it was just a certain, of what type of history. And
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been in school. My kids haven't told me anything yet. So I feel like there could be so much stuff that they can actually bring into the school when it comes to history. It just doesn't have to be about one race. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be about, because when you really think about it now, going to school is kind of like they were just telling us, hey, read, learn this stuff, and just feeding us whatever they wanted to. And then it gets to the point where somebody wants to come out and say, you know what? Everything you just learned was a lie.
It's a lie.
Because
Yep.
that's not what he was doing. He wanted to come over and take over. He ain't come here peacefully. That's crazy. All of a sudden you hear
Yep.
that. He's like, he ain't come
Yeah.
here
Absolutely.
peacefully. And just like what you said, it's always funny that when it came to the language barrier, it was always a problem for people. They always thought like, I don't like that you speak that. I think you need to start speaking English. And it was
Right.
just, it's been going, and that's been from way before, but it just kind of sucks that you sit back and you look at history and you kind of see this stuff and you're sitting there watching this and it's just like it's so upsetting. It's
Yeah.
really upsetting. Like
It is. It is. I mean, like I said, I don't have, me personally, I don't have a flag like you guys got, and I gotta be honest with you, I'm very envious of both of you guys because you do have a lineage that's not tied to this country, and I think that that's beautiful to have that because it's no matter where you were born, whether it was Florida or Queens or Brooklyn, you have your family's traits and history embedded in you, coming from Panama, a country in Central America, coming from, Puerto Rico, the Caribbean, and loving that, culture and things like that. And then the important part is it's up to you guys to pass down that lineage as well. At least you can pass that down to your kids and say, like Reggie, you were saying that, one day you would like to take your kids to Panama, right? It'd be great to pass that down because whatever you may have missed, your children may definitely appreciate that. And that will probably be their daily testimonial to say, hey, now that I know where my great grandmother comes from, I can survive because if she went through that, I can do this, and I think it's kind of interesting. But there's one flag I want to kind of talk about, if you guys don't mind, if you indulge me for a little bit. So since I don't have a flag, I'm going to use my wife's flag. So let me give you a little story about her. My wife is Sicilian, and so her flag is basically a red and yellow flag, and it's cut diagonal. So the top right corner is red, the bottom yellow corner is yellow, and in the middle of the flag is the head of Medusa and 3 legs. Coincidentally, my wife has that tattooed on her foot. So I can tell you a little bit about her flag. And, the 3 legs represent the 3 major counties in Sicily. So each leg for each county. And the head of Medusa is yep, that's it. Yep, that is it. So, and the head represents fertility, and the weed and everything. So, if you know the history of Sicily, Sicily was one of the places where there was a lot of African presence, believe it or not. There was a lot of African presence, a lot of Greek presence, and a lot of Italian presence. And so, when people were migrating from Africa, they didn't come straight to Italy. They came to Sicily. And that's why you get a lot of, of heritage in Sicily. There's a lot of African history in there. And it's funny because when my wife did that 23andMe, whatever, and she found that she's got like a lot of African in her. She's got like 17% African in her. So, understand, and that I thought was kind of cool because her family, not her specifically, but like grandparents and great grandparents, again, much like you guys, come from an island where there's history and there's foundation of culture and heritage. And I definitely envy that. But I say, even if you don't know it, as long as you acknowledge it and you want to learn more about it, hats off. I mean, that's fantastic. That's great.
Yeah.
I think another reason why I was saying that too, because I wanted to know, be like, where people, if they know where they come from. Because I think we were talking about anybody who comes to the U.S., because I was watching a movie, but that's people like that in real life, where I'm going to say Indian, but I forgot where, because like I said, it was a movie. But I know that there's people out there that feel like that. She's like, she's Indian, but for some reason she didn't want to like embrace her culture and everything that came with it. She's kind of like, what is this dance? And she was like, I probably wouldn't even be good at this. And she's like, she was having a moment where she's like, she didn't really care much for it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like it just gets to a point, like I say, I'm grateful for the US, because I'm telling you, if you look at other third world countries, they have it worse than us. I'm glad that I can actually walk out. Well, let me not even say that, but still, I can say that I'm happy that I can walk outside, that I can kind of say freely and be able to do stuff and not worry. Well, again, to a certain extent, because we might not be like other countries at war, but reality is that here, still in the U.S., whether New York or anywhere, things still happen outside in the streets when you least expect it. So there's something happening, but again, not as bad as other places where it's probably like nonstop war people, so
Right.
it gets to that point where I'm grateful. But I feel like people, once they come here, or the kids, once they're raised here, it's just like all history and everything else goes out the window. Like the kids in the daycare, the parents are still teaching their kids their language, where they come from,
Yeah.
and that's a beautiful thing. Some of the
Yep.
kids probably are going to become bilingual by the time they leave out of there, or trilingual, because
Yeah.
some of them know some Spanish. They repeat whatever the teachers say. So again, I feel like people, I don't know, people are not really like opening their minds and really just seeing shit for what it is, for the reality, for, you know what I'm saying? Like, I
Right.
think it's such a beautiful thing. I wish I knew another language besides Spanish. I wish I could, who knows? I wish I could speak Italian. I wish I could speak French. I wish I could speak another language that I could just be like, go anywhere
Fluent.
and speak to
Yeah.
people. And, I don't know. But
Sure.
we're still in this thing where I'm just like wondering why people are still racist. I feel like we're in 2023, and I'm like, look, we have so much diversity in freaking New York. I love all types of food. It's like, how are you still walking around being racist when you're over here eating Chinese food, eating
Well,
Italian food? Like, what
well,
is wrong with people?
that's a bigger topic for another day. But this
I don't
topic about
get it.
knowing where you're coming from and your flags, that's the pinnacle part of that bigger conversation. Like you just
Right,
said, it's the tip of the iceberg, because once you here's the progression of things. You're curious about where you're from, you're curious about your flag, right? And you find out about the flag, and you find out about the history of your country. And what it does is, if you're smart, it will provoke some sort of critical thinking about your country's history, your flag. So then you begin to question stuff. Well, why did this happen? Right? And what was the motive behind there? And what you do is, as you ask more and more questions, you're digging deeper down, and you're delving down into different levels to get to the grandiose answer, which I think everybody knows. We just live and born in a very racist country. It will always be like that, unfortunately. It's just the nature of the colonizers, basically. Um, and so to understand that, I mean, like you said, even in the state that you was born in, they're looking at getting rid of black studies. Matter of fact, I think they already did, but why they kept everything else? They kept Cuban, history. They kept Italian history. They kept Greek history, but they got rid of black history. Critical race theory. So, that's to say that, when you find that your back is against the wall, and you can't, openly celebrate these things, depending on where you live geographically, then you must, as a citizen, as a a production, or a byproduct of your country, of your flag, it is definitely your due diligence to pass that down and learn.
I agree with that.
Oh, he froze. Hello? Okay.
Oh,
You
can you
froze
guys
for a
see me?
minute.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so just learn, just do it. I'm glad you had this topic. That's all I'll say.
It's needed, but I'm gonna be honest. I feel like, because like what we're talking about now, I feel like it's good to know about your history, but I feel like history still continues. And I'm just saying, because when it comes to things like freedom of speech, I have moments where I try to be cautious of what I'm saying, how much I'm saying, because of everything that I've seen out there. It's just like, I feel like you could speak on certain things, but don't let it go too far. I feel like there's just like a line where you have to stop, because I feel like you want to give people information, insight on stuff, and like what we're talking about, have them kind of, like, hello people, wake up a little bit. But I feel
Right.
like that has to be people on their own, because like I said, I kind of try to watch of like what I'm saying and doing, because like I said, we're being watched.
Yeah.
We're being watched, they're listening to everything, so it's kind of like, again, people need to just
Absolutely.
see for themselves. I think it's
Right.
obvious, because I'm more of like a visual person,
Hmm.
visual, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing. I feel like I could see things for myself, but I'm only one person. I can't do nothing. But again, like I said, I'm blessed. 42 years, still here, still alive. It just sucks because once I'm not here, my kids are still gonna be here, and I don't know how the future is gonna be, what's gonna
Hmm.
be happening, how things are gonna continue to change. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Well, the one thing that you can guarantee for them is by passing down the information that you just learned. I mean, that's the beauty of heritage, and that's the beauty of continuing a culture. I mean, a culture will not. I mean, I can't tell you how many thousands of cultures that we've never heard of today has died because um, the information was not passed down, whether it was willingly or by some sort of emperor or conqueror that says, you cannot pass this down. So the good part about being here in this country is that even though we do have to be cautious of how we talk about these type of things, at least within your four walls, within your own home, you can discuss to the sky is blue about Puerto
Right.
Rico, about the flag, whatever, because it's first off, it's due diligence, one. And two, it would be unfair for them to not know because, that's how the culture is going to continue. That's how the heritage is going to continue. And you definitely don't want a beautiful culture like that go because you don't know. But now that you do, whatever you learn, you can pass that along. And then it could be a family thing too. Like, you can challenge your kids like, hey, what are some of the things that are excuse me, that's going on down in Puerto Rico. Have them research or ask them what the history is. What do they know about it, or what they have heard? And have that dialogue, because that's how that carries through. No matter whether you're Panamanian, Puerto Rican, Jamaican, Bohemian, Cuban. I mean, that's one of the things. Unfortunately for me, I can't do that. I'm just like grandpa and grandma, Brooklyn, great grandpa, great grandma, you know, South Carolina, Columbia,
Ah,
Harrisburg. I mean, that's about the limit of where that goes. I
well,
mean, mhm.
I was like, well, it would be you would have to get the history of New York. That would be that. It would be like the history of New York, how New York came together, and
Yes,
still we're gonna go into
yeah,
other nationalities, countries that also made New York. It's like it's still again, it wasn't just like oh, it's just
Yeah.
white people. There was
right,
other nationality, races
right, right,
that also built New York. But I was gonna say
right,
my kids know that they're Puerto Rican, but that's a good question. I've never asked them like how much they know. They know that they're
right,
Puerto Rican. That's it. Um,
right,
but
right.
that's definitely a good conversation. I do remember. I think it was probably like a week ago. I was at an Irish pub, right, in Park Slope, and it's called Patty's.
Oh, I
And I
know
remember
patties.
I,
I know patties. Yeah.
I was talking to this guy who he said he's from Ireland, right? And he was actually sitting there giving me history
Oh,
about it because he said that and that was another thing that I wanted to talk about too, because I mean, it's kind of part of the conversation today, but maybe a little bit because he said that his last name is Faulkner, right?
right.
Faulkner. So he was saying that I guess because again as times change, all of that keeps changing too, where it's more of like people also have to change their last names or their first names to
Hmm.
be more like Americanized or something that's easier for everybody else to pronounce, which I think that's kind of fucked up and it's wrong.
Right,
Like it should even be like that. I would just be like, tell me how you say your name instead of me just assuming, or I will spell it out if I have
right,
to, because
right,
I probably won't even know how to say it. But I just
right,
don't think it's fair that people had to like, you know what I mean, change their
right.
names. But I love that he was giving me the history of it. But then he mentioned something about too. He said something about Iberia, where he's also,
Yep.
I guess what he said, where they
Iberia, yep.
came to Ireland and all that. So I was just like, again, you see, it's interesting to sit with people who actually know the history. Again, I could even sit
Yeah.
there and tell them anything about Puerto Rico. I could just say I'm Puerto Rican, but that's
Right,
all I can give him. And he was
right,
giving me a whole history of it. His
right,
mom, like she says, when the 4th of July comes, she said that's really supposed to be her day. So it's just a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? Like
Right,
it's really interesting. I like to hear that. So
right, right. Well, I know my wife's family, and I guess, it's the classic, great grandparents and grandparents coming across the big pond over the boat, Ellis Island, and so they had to change their last name, right, just for safety reasons, because although it's a very derogative term, WAP, right? Do you guys know what that means? WAP, WAP, or WOP? I'm sorry.
besides, I don't even want to say because I like Cardi B, but what is the actual meaning of it?
WAP means without papers. That's what that stands for. It's an acronym for without papers. So what they used to
Oh,
do is, people who were coming over from Ellis Island, they may not have had papers. They had to change their name so that this way it could be more American and they can fit in and they can be able to assimilate within, that culture. So, I say that to say, it is very interesting that people will change their last name to fit a more Americanized way of being because they want to assimilate without having to be overly judged about where they come from. Um, this is not an example of it, but we have a friend of ours. His last name is Holness, and his family is from Jamaica, but he has a family crest. And the reason why is because Holness is a Scottish name. So he's Scottish, and the Holness clan came and pretty much knocked up everybody in Jamaica, for
Oh
the most
no.
part. So he has a lineage of that. So he goes as far as not only having, the country of Jamaica, but he also has a family crest from his Scottish side, and there's a history and lineage between that. So like I said, it's very important to learn and hear this. Again, and I know I sound like a broken record, although I don't have that benefit. I like hearing people's stories about where they come from in their flag, just like you did with the Irish gentleman at Patty's on 7th Avenue, in Brooklyn. Yep.
Fifth
Slow.
Avenue, Fifth
Oh,
Avenue,
yes.
13th Street.
Fifth Avenue and 13th Street. That's right. That's right. I'm thinking someplace else on 7th Avenue, but yeah, Fifth Avenue. I'm sorry, and 13th. So yeah, hey, it's all good. It's all good.
It's good. I mean, I wish I would have had more people on here when it comes to like where they come from because again, I want to know what they know or you know what I mean? Like I would love to hear of like if
Mhm.
they know things like right off the bat instead of having to do like me. But I'm like I said, I'm always interested. I could sit there and just listen to people because it's like,
Mhm.
that's the
Well,
type of stuff I do.
you see, that's what I'm saying. It's part of their family upbringing. What you'll find is that in a lot of cultures, and I'll take the Jewish culture for an example too, because in Williamsburg, they pride themselves on their culture and their religion, right? And I understand that a lot of people look negatively towards, Jewish, but they are so into their culture and into their religious practices and their flag, and that's something that is carried through each member of their family. And I remember, the surprising look of people that I went to undergrad college with who were Jewish and how much I knew about Judaism. And they're like, well, how do you know? I said, well, like you said, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York City, baby. It's the Mecca diversity capital of the world. We got Jewish, Italian, Puerto Rican, Black, Jamaican. I mean, it's just everybody. So that's one of the benefits of growing up in New York. Now, let me ask you this. If you were to have stayed in Florida, would you have had the same curiosity about Puerto Rico and the Puerto Rican flag?
Thanks to social media, yeah, because again, that's where I saw it.
Okay.
Not
Okay.
just like from anybody like not knowing something, like me, like let's say somebody actually physically that I know that I've seen, but it was just more of like social media, the
Mm-hmm.
internet, like that's what got me curious because I was just like the answer that I heard, I was like, you know what? I was like, that's a good question because I'm like, it's just like the Juneteenth. of like
Right.
what the anthem is as well. Like
Right.
I didn't even know any of that. And that was another thing that happened too when I performed. And then I posted on the page. Telemundo was there.
Hmm.
And it's crazy because I'm like, I speak Spanish, but I feel like when I'm putting pressure, I kind of speak like the broken down Spanish. I was like, no. um, he was asking questions like, did I know what Juneteenth was about? And I was like, again, I had a moment where I was just like, no.
Yeah.
But my quick little answer was that I appreciate what was happening that day of them having an event to show people and the young people what Juneteenth was about and what happened back then and where we at now, and especially when it comes to like freedom as well. So I
Right.
was
Yeah.
like, that would be the most that I can say that I can see for myself, that I'm like, this is good for the newer generation. Again, you see,
Right.
do they know the
Right.
history? Because I didn't, but do they know it? And it's
Right.
something good to learn for it to continue, so it won't be like we're just roaming the world and we don't know nothing. Like, oh yeah, we're just here. Like, I don't know why I'm black. That's it. Just
Right.
here.
That's
And
it. Yeah.
you know what I mean? And why people are so racist and what's wrong. You know what I mean? Like, what's wrong with it? There's a
Oops.
history of why we know that this racism between like the blacks and the whites or just any other country
Right.
that we have this thing against each other. And it's crazy. It
Right.
just
Yeah.
It is.
sucks. You know what I
It
mean?
is.
That's where I'm at with it. I just feel like it sucks and it's sad because, like I said, I love other cultures. I love other things. I wish that I can travel around the world and just see. And that's another thing I want to say, real quick, again, that it has nothing to do with this. But um, why is my thing? Oh, there's this thing that I've learned too, where I wish there was people that would speak about it more. That when you go
Mhm.
traveling to another country that's not the U.S., that I feel like everybody has their rules, the things that they do, like when it comes to like respect, how
Right.
you do things when you're out there. Because I feel like a lot of people, I don't know, when they think when they're traveling, it's like it's not New York, it's not the US. Things that we do here, we can't do in another country. So I don't know if I've never Googled to see like what are the rules and what's the things that are okay and not okay to do when you go out there. I feel like it's
Yeah.
all about respect when you go into someone else's, like, let's say if it was like someone else's home, someone else's country, because a
Right.
lot of people are saying things and I'm like, I think about it, I'm like, we're coming from somewhere else. We still need to learn their rules, their traditions, the things that like, where is it? I forgot. Is it Afghanistan or somewhere where women actually have to be covered up? Because I know there's places
Well,
where,
indeed. Yep.
yeah, there's certain places where you have to do things, and again, it's out of respect. It's like when
Hmm.
people come here, we get mad when we got tourists because it's like, what is their problem?
Right.
They're just
Right.
walking around
Mhm.
here like they own stuff, or but I
Well,
feel like
here's
um
well, here's the 2 plus 2 for that. Here's the answer to this, and you may not like it, but here's the answer to it. It's first off, it's American arrogance. Um, Americans, um, people from America who would travel abroad, who haven't traveled abroad, believe that wherever they go, that's where America is, and to some extent that's true. But they bring the arrogance of, well, it's legal in my country. Why is it not legal in yours? But you got to think of it this way too. Where does the history of the arrogance come from? The history of the arrogance comes from when people came over here to colonize. Did you think that they had the empathy and sympathy to go into somebody else's country and live by their rules? No. What they did is they burnt the whole house down and started their own culture. And that's
that's
where the
true.
arrogance comes from. And so that has carried over 400, 500 years. That's learned behavior, generation after generation after generation after generation, until present day, so that when they do travel to another country, it's they think that that's it's all about them. One of the things I say is, if you think about traveling abroad, one of the things I would recommend, especially if you've never been to that country before, is hopefully you have a travel agent. They will give you some of the rules of the road for going to another country. Like, for example, and I'll just point these out because I've been to these countries before, and some of them I haven't, but I just kind of know the rules. Like in Japan, right? It is illegal for you to eat outside in Japan and walk during the street. It's illegal for you to do that. You will get arrested for eating as you're walking down the street. You can't do that. That's one thing. We do it in New York all the time. We get a hot dog, we get a pretzel, we eat a bag of chips.
Yeah, we're always walking around eating and doing stuff.
Exactly. So imagine an American coming over to another country where that's illegal and not understanding that, and then thinking that there should be nothing wrong with it. But like you said, you have to respect the culture. Just like also in Japan, it's illegal for you to tip your hostess in a restaurant. You are not supposed to tip them at all. That's heavily frowned upon. So these are things that, we think of our own microcosm, our own country, what we do, but we don't realize that other places do things differently. If like in an Arab country, you get caught stealing, they cut your hand off. If you got caught stealing here, what do? You a misdemeanor or a felon or whatever, you go to jail.
Right.
You're not getting anything cut off, but you got to be careful with that. Same thing with Dubai. That's why the last time I was in Dubai, I was in the Navy, and we're talking about well over 30 years ago. It's definitely has changed, but that's why I always had a fear of going over to Dubai, especially if I went with my wife, because their culture about how women are supposed to present themselves is so strict that whether you're from that country or not, they enforce their rules. So yeah, you have to kind of take it upon yourself to kind of do your research and hopefully get a travel guide that will give you the rules of the road to whatever country you go to.
And I think, and I like, and I appreciate that some countries are like that, because when I look at New York City, it's kind of like we have moments where people like to throw garbage around. And I feel like other places are different when you really think about it, because I feel like, I don't know if they're going off of what we're doing and to be like, yo, we're not going to do what they're doing. You know what I mean? Or if that was already in place before. But I kind of appreciate it because I feel like, again, you're going to some place that's not the U.S. You're going into someone else's home. That's why I call it like someone else's home. It's like you have to respect. And I can understand why certain things don't happen, because it's like, you're not going to do what you do over there. Do it over here. Bring all your dirt. Think you're just going to do whatever. Let's throw trash. You know what I mean? Because I get it. Like, I feel like some places, some countries are so beautiful. It's like, why would you even want to mess it up? Like, why does it now have to become like a dirtiness, a landfill? You know what I mean? Like, sure. I feel that I appreciate people trying to preserve things, trying to keep things the way it is, because like, I'll be honest, I would have been like, what you doing out there? Nah, you ain't doing that here.
Exactly.
You ain't have that messiness out here.
Right.
I don't know how it is homelessness around the world, but I see how it is here. I don't know about anywhere else. I feel like I've seen movies, I've seen stuff. The way they make it seem is like there's homelessness, but I feel like it's, I don't know, it just looks like it's not just as bad as out here.
Well, it is. Let me tell you, I've been, so my wife and I just recently, last November, we traveled to Italy. And let me tell you, it is, I mean, we did a lot of the countryscape of Italy, which was nice, the vineyards and whatever. But like when we hit Rome, I remember going to Rome before, again, when I was in the Navy, but it kind of gave me a quick, reaffirming of what I've, experienced before. Rome is dirty. And there's so many homeless people and gypsies, and you really, it reminds me of New York, but on a different level, because it's like, if you're not from there and you don't know what's going on, you're going to get pickpocketed or you're going to get taken or, whatever. And it's so in that respect, we have a foundation, right? We're from New York, right? We know, you don't leave your wallet in your back pocket, you don't, do this, you don't do that, whatever. So I kind of brought that with me to Italy, especially more Rome. And let me tell you, Homelessness is everywhere. Don't believe the hype, man. If you think it's bad here, it's rampant in other countries, like really. But you got to think about it though. Hollywood, glamorizes all these other countries. Of course, they're not going to show you, homeless
The
people. Of
poor
course, they're
side.
not gonna show you, right?
Yeah.
They're going to show you Paris. They're going to show you the Eiffel Tower. They're going to show you the Louvre. They're going to show you, Arc de Triomphe. They're not going to show you the ghetto where there's prostitutes on the corner sucking dick because that's the only thing that they can do, and it's just poor like that. They won't show you that, but it's everywhere. It's literally everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like we can have a conversation about like so many things when it comes to like the U.S. and other countries because I mean there's just like so much stuff that's
Mm-hmm.
happening out there. And like I said, I'm gonna take today after this, either today or tomorrow, to actually like Google and research about it. What you're talking about, like rules when you go into someone else's country of like the
Yep.
do's and the don'ts and like what they have because like I said, it's
So
really
let me
interesting.
ask you, what are if I asked you what are the top three countries you would love to travel to and find out the rules about that country? What would be your top three countries?
Man, where have I wanted to travel? Puerto Rico, of course, is one definitely still on my list. I
Sure,
mean,
sure,
um,
but it's not a country. So give me a country. A
right.
country.
Oh gosh.
All right.
Man,
While you're thinking about it,
that's a good question. You got me stumped. I'm like, where do I want to go? Where would I
right?
want to
Because
visit?
because
I
because
don't.
when you figure that out and you figure out where you want to go and you start researching it, a couple of things is going to happen. You're going to become so curious and figure out what's the culture of that particular country that one day you are going to make yourself go to that country.
Mm.
Whether you can afford it or not, you will make yourself go to that country because if it fascinates you that much and it almost to the point where you kind of dream about being in a different country and experience different food and different people, whatever, you will make it happen. You will truly, truly, truly make it happen. So I'm going to ask Reggie the same question. Reggie, if you had three countries, your top three, what countries would you travel to that you would want to do research on?
Um, Obviously Panama.
Sure.
Uh, Second country would be. That's a good question. Second question. Second country would be. Hmm. I would say Japan,
Okay.
Mm,
and third would be. Hmm. Third would be. I want to say. Hmm.
It's hard, right?
I
When
guess
somebody asks you,
Mexico. I guess. Yeah.
hey, yeah, sure, sure.
I heard what he said. Japan would definitely be one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually thought about. I wanted to like well with my boyfriend now, but before he said it, I thought about like Ireland.
Mhm.
Because so a quick thing. So I don't know if I mentioned to you guys before. I probably could have said it somewhere in another show. I did that whole ancestry DNA, and
Uh-huh.
it's
Mm.
funny because like the percentage of it, it probably be like 1%, but there was like Irish, Scottish. Um,
Mm.
oh my gosh, what are the other ones? Did it say anything like Cambodia? But I just know there was just a whole bunch, and I'm just like the percentage of it. I was like, that's why. Silly me. I'm so silly. 'Cause I was like, that's why I love the culture so much and the music and everything else. But I
Yeah,
think probably anybody would. But just me, I'm like, for some reason, I just truly love it. But
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
that
awesome.
that was pretty interesting when it gave me the history of all that. All right, so hold on a second. I should be able to. I know I took a screenshot of it. Then it's talking about that it's like your thing has been updated. I'm like, what?
Uh-oh.
Let's see if I can get in. Hold on. I remember I had a friend who told me she's like, why would you give your DNA to these people. And I'm like, look, if I don't do it through this, somebody's gonna get my DNA, my blood, saliva
Yes.
from
Yeah.
someplace else. So I was like, I'm not gonna
Mm.
be sitting around my life being paranoid about every little single thing because now I gotta
True.
worry about who has like they have it, they have it. I'm not gonna. That's where I'm at with
Right.
a lot of stuff. I
Yeah.
was like, you ain't gonna have me paranoid.
Right.
Mm.
Let me go put some aluminum foil on my my
On your
windows and
forehead and on
like
your cell phone.
I'm not gonna be paranoid like that. Like I'm good.
Cool.
I'm like, we live
Cool.
in a world where I'm always saying like it is what it is.
It is
I
what
don't
it
feel
is.
like some of us see what's the reality of what's happening, so that's where I'm at.
Mhm.
So it's saying there's a whole bunch that says like 1%, right? So for all of these, I'm 1%. England and Northwestern Western Europe, I'm 1% Jewish. um,
Cool.
Mm.
Indigenous Haiti and Dominican Republic, Northern Africa, and I guess the Mumbuti peoples.
Mamuti,
I
yeah.
can't pronounce it, right? Okay. Then I'm 2% of Scotland,
Mm.
3% of Wales, 3% of Basque, 4% of Portugal, Mali, and Senegal. Am I saying that right? Because I feel
Senegal,
like I'm
yeah.
chopping up. Then I'm 5% Benin and Togo.
Okay.
Am I saying that right?
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Then I'm 6% Ireland.
Yeah.
6%.
There you go. There you go.
8% Ivory Coast and Ghana. 12% Indigenous Puerto Rico. 13% Nigeria. 14% Spain. And 17% of Cameroon, Congo, and the Western Bantu peoples.
There you go.
Okay.
That's everything right there.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you got a lot of homework and a lot of flags to research. That's
Mm.
Oh
what
Mm.
it
man,
sounds
I
like to
was
me.
sitting there for a minute.
Yeah.
It's like
But
Mm.
you
here we
know
are.
what?
We're
No,
gonna give you a whole history lesson
yeah,
on
exactly. But the reason why I
King
say that
Barrett.
though is because and the reason why I say that is because just for the very reason why you're doing this podcast, right? It's not just about Puerto Rico, but it's like those other parts of you that you have a tie to. You should know about those as well because that may help you explain you,
Mm.
and it's a foundation to keep you moving forward, because without that, you don't want to miss those delicate pieces or those fabrics or those fibers that make you up. Just because you're predominantly this doesn't mean that we got to ignore everything else. So that's why I'm glad, like I said, with this podcast, where you're from, what's your flag, now you've discovered that you have many flags and you have many places to really dig down deep and say, okay, and know what their culture is. And, oh, maybe that's why I do that. Or maybe there's part of those other cultures that you may want to actually try or kind of help better yourself or take yourself on a different path. You don't know that until you do the research. So
Mm.
there you
Right.
have
Although
it.
it's important. I feel like it's important. I mean, I'm definitely gonna have a conversation with my kids. I don't know if they also did the ancestry DNA, if it would be the same thing, or maybe it might be different. Who knows? But
You never know.
it was something I definitely would like to try and just see. Like I
Right.
said, they already got my saliva, they already got my blood and my DNA. Like, whatever. It is what it is. I'm gonna have them do it too, and we're just gonna try to get this and see
Yeah,
where they come from, and so they can also
absolutely.
get an understanding of like, this
Who
is
they
me,
are.
this is what I'm
Yeah.
mixed with. It's a beautiful thing. I would love to eventually see for them as well too. So that
Well,
should be
here's
interesting.
a great question to ask them. Who are you? Start off with that. That's a basic question. Who are you? Where
Yeah.
do you come from? And if you don't know, that's fine. Let's do this together. Let's figure out who are you? Who do you come from? And yeah, I'm born in Brooklyn. Yeah, got that. Puerto Rico, got that. From Queens, got that. But truly, who are you? Who peoples do you come from other lands or other countries? Do you know? Or did you not know that you did? And that hopefully would spark that conversation and get them curious. So,
It's good. I'll be walking around and be like, I'm a little bit percent of this. I was like, I'm your people.
your peoples,
Yeah.
peoples. Yeah.
You're
Bring
my
people
people.
together. Bring them together.
But I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, one can only wish, but you never know. It might happen. But I would definitely like to. You see, like what we're talking about now, I definitely would love to if I can make plans to like travel to at least one of these places and just get,
Cool.
somebody who can give me a little history. Like I said, I know there's always somebody somewhere who knows the history of their country very well. And
Mm,
I would just love to like eventually see if I can make that happen. But yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a beautiful thing.
definitely.
Beautiful thing.
So no, so I have another question for you too, and I don't know if this is a different Puerto Rican flag or a I don't know if Puerto Rico has counties, but like a county in Puerto Rico has a flag. But I remember one of my friends telling me about a flag that has a coquille on it.
Oh, that I don't I don't know anything about that. That's a good question. As a matter of fact, thanks for bringing that up before we end the show. I'm going
Okay.
to research on the coquille because the coquille in Puerto Rico is like a real big thing because
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah, it's a
have
big flag.
that. I have that on my bottles. Like I have like Angie's Coquito and I got the little coquille with
Hmm.
the Puerto Rican flag next to it. So
Right.
definitely. But I don't think that's let's see. What
I mean, I don't know if it's a flag or if it's, a territory or an area in Puerto Rico that's because I know one area of Puerto Rico is, I don't want to say overran, but there's a lot of coquis in there. So that's kind of like
Mm.
their thing. So I don't know, but I figured I would ask. Doesn't hurt to
Well, it
ask.
does say so. It says here the Puerto Rican coquille frog, right? And I can't
Yep.
pronounce this word, is both a cultural icon and a species with an unusual natural history that has attracted attention from researchers in a number of different fields within biology. It says, unlike most frogs, the coquille frog skips the tadpole stage, what makes it of interest to developmental biologists. The frog is best known in Puerto Rico for its notoriously loud mating call, which
Yeah.
has allowed research to study aspects of social behavior such as vocal communication and courtship, while the
Hmm.
ability of coquille to colonize new habitats have been used to explore the biology of invasive species. And then it says about the introduction, right? It says on the Caribbean island of Puerto Rico, the night is filled with high pitched calls of coquille. The common or Puerto Rican coquille sings its song across the island. It says this small but boisterous frog is a national symbol of Puerto Rico and has featured prominently in the island's culture for thousands of years. The
Right.
indigenous Taino people believe a goddess created the frog to forever call out the name of her lost love. Coquille,
Oh,
who was
Mm.
taken from her by the god of chaos and disorder, the coquille frog remains as celebrated today as it was by the ancient Taino people. And the Taino symbol for the frog appears in everything from artwork and pottery
yep.
to the marketing and branding many of Puerto Rican companies. Indeed, the coquille frog is so important to the identity of Puerto Ricans that they often express their nationality by saying, soy de aquí como el coquí.
Mm,
Mm.
So
that's
that's pretty
awesome.
interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but I have seen it. And I have seen drawings and tattoos of this coquí. I don't know if you can see it, because like I said, I'm still learning how to get hold on a second. I have to put a text message on hold while I'm trying to show this. I don't know if you can see it. Like you see it?
Yep. Yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
So and the cookie is definitely that's always been, yeah. Like even we
Yep.
know that it's
Yeah.
beautiful. But thank you for bringing that up because I almost forgot about that one about
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
coquito because
No.
coquito, right? Coquito,
Yeah.
coquito. Even though it's with the because of coconuts, but it's just the fact of how they call it. It's like
What do
coquito,
you call it? Yep. Exactly.
coquito, you know.
Okay.
So yes, thank you for that.
Yes, you're welcome.
I was like that was one of the most important things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
forget the cookie now. Come on, the frogs. I heard it was called
Right?
because that was the sound that they made. It sounded like cookie, 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 cookie. That's what I heard. But I like your research better after the lost love of cookie. Yeah, I
That's
like that better.
beautiful. The things that people come up with,
Hmm.
when
Yeah.
they put a story behind something, and then it's just like, I was like, that's really nice. Like, okay.
Hmm.
I'm like,
Yeah,
nice.
absolutely. Absolutely. And the same thing rolls for Panama too, with the Panama Canal too. There's a big history with that and why Panama was so rich.
Yeah.
Um, because they were very rich at a for a long time. And I don't know if you guys know the history, but I think it was supposed to be so a president before you guys were probably born, Jimmy Carter, back in the late 70s, he had made a proposal to give Panama back the Panama Canal. And that pissed a
Ooh,
lot of people off because guess what? That meant that we were going to lose a lot of revenue. But before then, Panama owned the Panama Canal, and that was a very rich port.
wow.
Yeah.
So those are the type of things that you know. Just like you said, talking to other people from other cultures and other countries, and just traveling, whatever. It's important. You got to do it. You got to do it. If not for
Exactly.
yourself, pass down that lineage to your folks, to your peoples, to your kids. So
Most
Right.
definitely.
So with that being said, hopefully I don't think I left anything out, but this is always could be a continuation of that, still
awesome.
learning, still learning.
Still
Um,
learning.
so I just want to say thank you for being on the show tonight. I appreciate it as always. Um, so I do go live, so most of the stuff is already posted. I have it on Spotify. I'm also on SoundCloud and on YouTube, as Thoughts of a Light Skinned Woman. Again, I just want to say thank you to my friends, my supporters who have been watching, who have supported me since I started this, and I want to say thank you because, like I said, I'm eventually, or it will happen. I'll get better from here. Like I said, when it comes to all of this and how to manage it, I just got to sit down and have time, because that's
Yeah.
another thing I've learned. You have to really put a lot of time and investment into this. So
Hmm.
hopefully for that month that I'm off, I can actually do that, take a time to kind of learn, play around with some stuff, and hopefully by the time next time I should be, I wouldn't say a pro, but I'll
Hey,
get there.
if you need an R&D partner to someone to test for you, I'll be more than happy to help you out on that.
All right, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
cool.
All right, so again, like I want to say thank you. Have a good night, and
All
I
right.
will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.